Hello everybody, I'm Roberto Barrella from the Chair of Energy Poverty, and today I will introduce you to our work on energy poverty indicators in Spain. Especially we will focus on three aspects of this work: on the datasets we used, the methods we propose, and the results we obtained. In order to do the real work, we have to think about why we did it. The Chair of Energy Poverty is a research and action center against energy poverty. We work mainly in Spain, but also European level. There are four research areas who work in an interdisciplinary way, but there is also a forum of stakeholders who work on policies and actions against energy poverty. When we talk about indicators, we know that the indicators word is a broad word, but when focusing on the main ones we picked up, we have two different perspectives. An objective perspective when we use data, objective data, to calculate indicators, and a subjective perspective. Among the ones we saw as key or main indicators, or most used one, we picked 6 different indicators. In particular, we picked the arrears in utility bills and the declared inability to maintain adequate temperature in winter for subjective indicators, and we picked the 2M and M/2 as the EPA and EPOV indicators among the objective indicators, but also the minimum income standard and hidden energy poverty were 2 indicators we propose ourselves for Spain. The indicators are actually calculated with different datasets. In particular, we use the Survey on Income and Living Condition, the CLC, to calculate the subjective indicators. Then we use the Spanish Household Budget Survey to calculate the objective one, as you see in the picture. And then, if we go forward with these indicators, and we focus on the one of these indicators in particular, the ones we propose from the Spain, for calculate the disproportionate expenditure in households, that we use the methodology called minimum income standard, MIC. We actually compare the household income with the sum of the minimum income standard excluding energy, that is a baseline to satisfy all goods except for energy in the households, that depends also on the household composition, plus actually the household's energy expenditure. And in this case that you see in the picture, if the sum of these two ones is lower than the household incomes, the household is not in energy poverty. But this, when the sum of the MIC and the household energy expenditures is more than the household income, so they have disproportionate expenditure, so the household is in minimum income standard energy poverty. In Spain 2022, 13.1% of people were in energy poverty according to this indicator. And then when looking to the trend, in the last 2 years we have data, we have this indicator been decreasing, and we justify mainly this tendency because of the increase in income that we have experienced in Spain. And then we're looking at the regional point of view, we saw that the region where the income is lower are the region actually where this perspective, this phase of energy poverty is worse, especially in Extremadura. And then we're looking at the other face of the coin, and we look at the underspending on underconsumption issue. We use an indicator called hidden energy poverty indicator, and we propose a methodology as we're gonna present now. So, first of all, we apply a threshold, and we consider all the households with incomes below the median. Then we calculate for each of these households the household's required energy expenditure, which is a theoretical expenditure to satisfy all their energy needs. Then we set up two different thresholds: half the required energy expenditure and a quarter of the required energy expenditure. If the household's actual energy expenditure is higher of the half required energy expenditure, they don't have a problem of hidden energy poverty. If it's lower of half the required energy expenditure, there are hidden energy poverty. But it's even lower than half of the half, so a quarter of the required energy expenditure, they are in severe hidden energy poverty. In Spain, 2022, almost 31% of people were in hidden energy poverty and 10.6% were in severe hidden energy poverty. So then, looking at the trend, these indicators rose up in 2021 with respect to 2020, and then it maintained the same in 2022. But it's a severe issue, the one of hidden energy poverty, and in the years where the energy crisis peaked the most, actually this indicator increased a lot. Then, when looking at the regional perspective, we saw also in this case that the low income perspective is one of the main key drivers of this aspect of energy poverty. But also in this case, energy efficiency really matters, because the regions with lower energy efficiency in buildings are the region who performs worse in this indicator. But then we wanted to see a counterfactual scenario. We actually calculated the same indicators, but with the supposing that the social tariffs applied in the 2022s were not applied. So in these counterfactual scenarios, without these very interesting measures, the hidden energy poverty indicator would have been brought up until 30.2%, and the severe hidden energy poverty up to 10.9%. So both it's 0.4 and 0.3 percent points more than the base case. And then after seeing the extent of the hidden energy poverty, we also wanted to show another important issue, what is the depth of this problem, which is the energy poverty gap. Particularly, the energy poverty gap is calculated starting from the household's required energy expenditure and setting the threshold of the required energy expenditure as we see before. And when we saw the household actual energy expenditure, we define the energy gap as the difference between half the required energy expenditure of these households and its actual energy expenditure. This gap to reach the required energy needs. So in 2022, this average gap was almost 200 euros. That's a lot. And then, when looking at the counterfactual scenarios, this average gap was 95 euro. So, to wrap up our conversation, we saw that picking up 6 indicators to show how the energy poverty is going in a country such as Spain give a different scenario depending on the indicators. And actually it's very important to go into it and understanding all the perspective of these. So if we focus, for example, in the disproportionate expenditure indicator, on one hand the 2M relative indicators, we saw that it rise in 2022. But then when we look at the minimum income standard, we take into account an absolute threshold for um, uh, for energy poverty, it decreased in that year. And the different trends we can experience also when we look at M/2, the hand spending indicator that performed a down and up trend in the last 2 years. But when we look at the hidden energy poverty indicator, we saw that it rise a lot in 2021 and that it maintained more or less the same in 2022. And this indicator is very important, it's very correlative with the inadequate temperature indicators who perform a similar trend, who rose a lot in the last years. On the last hand, we see the arrears on utility bills maintain the same in these years. And this can be justified, for example, by the good social intervention that have been picked by the government, especially the social tariffs and the prohibition of cuts on vulnerable consumers in these years, in particular the COVID and the energy crisis years. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I'm very grateful for your attention. And please, if you want to know more about our studies, scan this QR code and stay tuned.